Hey yo, this is the SKA CAST. How's everybody doing? Today on the program we got Taylor Morden of Pop Motion Pictures, creator of the documentary that we all know and love, Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s. Today Taylor and I take a deep dive into his highly esteemed documentary. We also talk about his days as a performing musician in the scene, and he even tells me about his new movie, The Last Blockbuster. Make sure you stay connected. PopMotionPictures.com, SkaMovie.com, TheLastBlockbusterMovie.com. Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s is now available on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital, you know what I'm saying? Prime Video, Vimeo on demand. Go get that. This is the SKA CAST, Taylor Morden, everybody.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great, man. I really appreciate you doing this, for real.
No problem.
Yeah, man. So I just kind of wanted to start at the beginning, man. I just wanted to ask, kind of want to see if we can get into your story and your connection to the whole ska scene. You know, I've watched the movie mad times, but I kind of wanted to see maybe you can give us some context into what you do at Pop Motion and all the other stuff you worked on too. I've seen you have like mad credits on the link you sent me. So kind of want to see like your upbringing into, you know, how you got into directing would be what you do or
I call myself a filmmaker.
Okay. Uh-huh.
It's so low budget and independent that, you know, I'm directing, I'm producing, I'm, you know, running the cameras, recording the audio, all that stuff. Try to get help when I can, when we can afford it. But a lot of times it's just me. So I call that just a filmmaker, but director is what goes on most of the credits. So
how did you get into the ska scene? Did you come up playing in bands like most fans do, or did you were you in marching band and you got introduced by some of your homies, or how was that?
Yeah, kind of like that. I picked up a trumpet in third grade. I very much remember this guy came to our class in second grade at the end of the year, and he had a trumpet, a trombone, and a saxophone, and he said, "These are what you can play next year. You know, when you go into third grade, you can pick an instrument." And I couldn't understand how the trombone worked. And I was like, "There's no buttons. You know, I can understand buttons. I can't understand the slide." Saxophone looked way too complicated, like too many buttons. And so I picked the trumpet. I figured that was it was also the smallest. I'm a little guy. I was very short. So I was like, I can handle that one. So yeah, third grade, which is like 30 years ago, I picked up a trumpet.
Right.
And it took me until high school to hear ska music, ska punk music. I was listening to punk. I was listening to like NoFX and Lagwagon and early Blink and stuff like that. I had heard, you know, like Rancid had some ska music in there, but I hadn't heard Operation Ivy or any of that. And I heard, actually my introduction was Five Iron Frenzy, because I had some friends that were only allowed to listen to Christian music. So they gave me, let me borrow that CD, and I heard it was basically punk rock music, but it had a trumpet in it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, this is awesome. I can do that with this instrument that I already play. And within a year, I was playing in ska bands, and I kind of never stopped. I've been playing off and on in ska bands for 20-something years. And I played in, I don't know, 5 or 6 different bands, toured all over the world, put out a bunch of records. None of them are very good, but...
Right. I mean, which bands were you playing for, and do you continue to play for?
I don't actually play in any bands right now since I moved back to Oregon here. I was in a band in DC called Party Like It's, and they still play.
Okay.
It's like it's a lot of covers, kind of. We did like pop music, like Kesha songs, but ska. Okay. And before that, I was in a band called The Shifters in DC. It was like a rock steady group. Before that, I played in, I don't know the chronology, but I played in a band called Miami Airlines, a band called the Vericoasters, a band called 007, and a band called Pocket Face. Pocket Face was the one we toured Japan a lot, and we're on MTV over there and put out some records.
Nice. I'm gonna go look all them up. I definitely heard the Pocket Face name for sure.
Yeah, we did all right. And the bass player from that band is the guy that helped me produce the movie. Okay. So we worked together the last few years. Again, we hadn't played in a band for 15 years, and he was like, "You should make a movie about ska." And I said, "I can do it, but you have to help." So that's how I got him into it.
It was cool linking up again, or were you guys kind of friends like throughout the years?
We stayed in touch. He lived in Japan and I lived here, so I would go back to Japan once in a while, and we'd always meet up, and he would come back to Oregon once in a while. We'd meet up, but we weren't like really close.
Gotcha.
But we were always, you know, I feel like if you play in a band with somebody, you have it's more like family. You have like this bond that's different than other friends.
Well, definitely.
Especially when you're young, you're spending so many hours rehearsing together, so many hours in a van together, and your lives are all intertwined, especially touring. You're all connected. So I don't feel like that really goes away.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's funny that you say that, because it's like a different type of relationship when you're sitting inside the rehearsal spots for so many hours, you know. And
Yeah.
you hadn't said this yet, or I'm not sure if this was your role, like in your bands, but most of the time, like it's always like, well, not always. Most of the time, though, it's probably like one or two of the guys in the band that like handle the booking and the back and stuff. Was that you, or was that?
Not really. I had like different roles in different bands. A lot of the times, as a horn player, you're not like leading stuff. The horn section is their own thing a lot of the time, and so I feel like I would do a lot more. Like I would make the flyers, or make T-shirts and things like that, and do kind of that side. And I was pretty good as a salesman at the merch table, so I would get stuck with that a lot. But usually, I think the beauty of being in a ska band is there's so many people, you can usually split up the workload. So it's not like somebody has to handle all of the booking or the promotion. I mean, and back then promoting was putting up actual flyers around town, and we didn't have Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or anything. So that kind of thing, it was physical labor to go promote a show. You'd have to go find people and talk to them. Hey, you want to come to my show tonight? You get to the new town, you get out of the van, and you go to where the people are, go to the mall and hand out flyers or whatever. So I don't know. I think being in a ska band, like with more people, it was pretty great having that division of labor, having different people to do different things. So that was great. But I was never really in charge. I did have like a pop punk band for a few years that was just a 4-piece that I was more in charge of, and that's a lot of work. So I kind of like being in the ska band and being just a trumpet player and being able to sit back and go along for the ride.
What was the pop punk band that you
we were called Alter Ego. We're not very good.
Okay.
It's on Bandcamp somewhere, I think.
Nice. Oh yeah, man. You said you played for a Rocksteady group. You played trumpet. One thing that I've talked to some of my friends that are within like the Rocksteady circle, it seems like it's kind of like a universal thing where there's kind of like people on speed dial in every state for whichever like singer's on tour and needs like a backing band.
Yeah, we did do a record with Roy and Yvonne.
Nice.
And it was like them with the Shifters, and I don't know where it exists. It's out. I think I have one copy on vinyl. That's it's that kind of thing. But we did some of that. We did a tour with Queen P.
Okay.
We did a tour on the East Coast backing her. But yeah, it's totally like that. We played with Chris Murray a few times.
Nice.
Where it's like, you learn the standard songs and then you just do it whenever. But I also saw that we did a West Coast run. We were based in DC, and it's just like you said, you call up the Rocksteady people and everybody shows up. It's that tight knit community.
Yeah. So in the movie, I just kind of want to dive into that, if you don't mind. In the movie, Tim Armstrong, he opens up saying that there was a time in the 1990s where ska was all over. It seemed like ska was all over the world, right? Just to give you some context, I'm only 24. I know I'm not the youngest cat, but 95 was when I was born. So I completely missed that whole thing in real time. Reason being, I was a baby, and like most of the 90s babies, I got ska with Tony Hawk. But fast forward to 2020, I feel like ska it's still everywhere. I mean, if you just kind of even on a general level, scanning Instagram. I mean, there's the you said you're in Oregon right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming there's still a very, very vibrant ska scene in Oregon, right?
I live in a small town in the middle of Oregon, and there is no ska here.
Okay.
But I believe there is some still happening in Portland. And Ray, my old bass player who worked on the movie, is living in Eugene now. And I think he's trying to see a revitalization. But I think it's mostly touring bands coming through now.
Right.
I don't think there's a couple in Portland, but there's not much anywhere else. It's a big state.
Of course. And, so like with my point in that, like in the States, you'll see a lot of tight-knit communities, within each state. Okay, the ska show is happening here, whether it's the Facebook groups or Instagram or whatever it is nowadays, right? We go internationally. You said you toured a lot. I mean, I'm sure you already know how big Japan is for ska. I mean, I just interviewed a band from Colombia, and the way they're describing it is the ska scene is very alive in Colombia,
Nice.
Australia, I mean, India, Brazil. I mean, it's still all over the world. During the 90s explosion, do you remember the ska like kind of being a worldwide thing as it still is now, or has it always just kind of like, because it's always been kind of like because for example, like in my family, my family comes from Mexico. A lot of Spanish rock, dude. Most of those songs are straight up like ska songs, so it's like it's always been around for us,
I didn't know it so much at the time because before we didn't really have the internet like you grew up with. It sounds like I'm just an old man yelling at clouds or whatever, but when you, like you're saying, you got into it through Tony Hawk. At that time, you could then go Google ska bands and then find all this stuff. But when we were doing it, I knew the ska bands that came through the town I lived in, and the ones in the record stores. You could go, and some stores would have a ska section, like even at the mall, right? Like Sam Goody or whatever, Tower Records. And that's where I found my ska music, and then the internet kind of grew. And so you could go to like a band's website, like a Less Than Jake or a Real Big Fish, and there would be a page of links. This is how we used to do it. It would be like, home, bio, music. They didn't really have video back then. And then it would be links, and it would be links to other bands. So you could find bands that way. And zines were a big thing. But as far as the international scale of it, like I didn't realize it was big in other countries until we went to Japan to play. And there were all these other ska bands, and we were playing these huge shows. And that was when it clicked for me. But even then, I only knew it was big in Japan. I didn't know about Europe, about Latin America. Later, since then, I've kind of had an eye out, and you hear, especially because of the internet, because of Instagram, because of Facebook, you see all of these things. And then making the movie, we talked to people, and everybody would say, well, you have no idea how big this is in Mexico, in Latin America, in Europe. I knew Japan, obviously, and then Australia too, like you said. And that was one of the things I learned making the movie. So over the years, putting that together, I don't know, like when we started, we didn't think that was going to be such a big part, but now it's like the last 10 minutes of the movie is about this worldwide ska scene. And I don't think that would have happened the way it is now, the way it's connected now, without the internet, without social media, things like that. Because like I said, in the 90s, when people were doing it, if you were in a band, you knew all the other bands. If you toured internationally, you'd know all those people. But if you were a fan going to a show, in the middle of Wyoming or, Nebraska or something, you'd see Real Big Fish, you'd see Less Than Jake, maybe the Pie Tasters would come through, some smaller bands if you were lucky, and then whatever your local bands were. So you'd see a lot of these local pockets where, I hear this from people all the time about the movie. They're like, why didn't you include, so-and-so, my favorite band and they live, wherever in,
Right.
South Dakota or North Dakota. And it's like, to them, that was the biggest band because it was the biggest band in their town. And that, I think, especially in the 90s, that was huge everywhere. Every town had like the ska band that everybody loved. Most of them didn't break out. It's hard to tour if you have a ska band. It's too many people to fit in most bands. So a lot of ska bands kind of stayed regional at that level, but they were huge. Everybody loved this band or that band. So I don't know. It's global now, but it felt more local then, more regional.
Of course. Yeah. I was stoked when you guys were first filming, and then you guys put out like the little snapshot of Clemente, yeah. And I was like, damn, all right, cool. So they're actually like, going to cover like all grounds, because that was like something that like was always like present in the scene out here in LA. It was like here in LA, like this dude is throwing festivals, and it's like a park in South Central, and the whole park is packed. It looks like Coachella. You know what I'm saying? And then so when I saw that, I'm like, all right, hell yeah. And so I'm really glad that you got the Orden Público in there too, because even them, I've never seen them live, but just, in the LA scene, how big Spanish ska is out here, like we just geek out on their videos, even like as musicians. I don't know if you've ever seen any of their live videos, dude. Dude, look up a song they got called Esto es Ska and Valle de Balas. It's like a medley. I'll just send it to you on Instagram later.
Yeah, send it to me.
The YouTube link. Oh, man. That's the only way I can describe it. Is oh man, it's crazy. And so I just wanted to ask, like, who was the one that like brought all that like attention? Because I understand you already had like the knowledge of Japan.
Yeah.
Who brought you like the Venezuelan bands, and who brought you Clemente? Who brought you the Mexican bands?
It's hard to remember because when we were doing it, everybody we would talk to would connect us to another person. So it would be like, you finish talking with somebody from Save Ferris, and they're like, who you should talk to. And then you go to this person, who else you should talk to. So it spread like that. But I know a lot of the, especially with the Spanish speaking bands, a lot of that was organized through the trombone player in my previous band, Party Like It's, Pedro, and he speaks Spanish, so he did a lot of our translating and a lot of that connecting and logistics. Clemente, I think, I want to say he hit us up directly on Instagram or something like that.
Nice.
And then I Googled him, and I was like, oh, this guy's for real.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah. No, he's definitely been leading the charge out here in LA, you know?
Yeah, and he was really helpful too, because a lot of the footage we have in there is his footage. He's a great photographer and he shoots video and stuff. So
Yeah, exactly.
Like on top of being in the movie, he also helped us out with footage and all that stuff.
That's awesome. And, something